All right, I think we should get started now. It's already 4:30.
Sure.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this afternoon's CERIAS security seminar. Thank you for being here. Today, we are really pleased to have Dr. Frederick Scholl speaking virtually. His talk will be on cybercrime, a proposed solution. So Dr. Scholl is an accomplished global information security risk manager with a unique record of accomplishments in business and technology. He is one of the few people in the cybersecurity industry with business experience from startup to board member and security experience from practitioner to manager. He is now cybersecurity program manager and associate teaching professor at Quinnipiac University. He earned his BS and PhD in electrical engineering from Cornell University. He also completed an internet law program from Harvard and holds many security certifications, including CISSP and CHP and some others. He is also listed in 2020 Who is Who in America. Frederick, thank you so much for joining us today. Please take it away.
Thank you, Professor. Can you see my screen okay still?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, I'm very excited to be here because I know so many incredible things about the security program that you have at Purdue. And I really wanted to come up last year to give this talk, partly because I wanted to come to campus and meet people there, and also partly because my son went to Purdue. But things have changed, so he graduated, so that's not going to work. And also the whole pandemic delayed the whole trip and stuff like that. But I know you've had many, many brilliant speakers over the years, so I kind of feel pretty awed just to even be part of this program. So as Professor Selleck said, so I am currently in academia. I'm the director of the cybersecurity master's degree program at Quinnipiac. We're a mid-sized school in Hamden, Connecticut, and this program is all online. It's really focused around security defense. So I over the past couple of years, I've started thinking more and more about security defense. And we have some things that are interesting here. I interview people pretty regularly on what's going on in the security job market, and you can go there and take a look at that if you like. But I feel a little bit like I'm bringing coals to Newcastle because we're a teaching university. We're not like you guys are a tier 1 research university. But I kind of looked up what does it mean bringing coals to Newcastle. So it goes back a few centuries. Newcastle, England was a big center of coal mining. So bringing coals to Newcastle sounds ridiculous, but this one American entrepreneur back in the 19th century he sailed to Newcastle and brought in a whole boatload of coal and actually made a lot of money selling it because there was a miners' strike going on at the time. So I'm kind of throwing out some ideas here. If anybody wants to kind of collaborate in any way, just drop me an email or connect with me on LinkedIn. And oh, by the way, I saw that Newcastle, Australia is now the biggest exporter of coal in the world. So kind of a fact you didn't really want to know. But anyway, so this is about cybercrime analysis. Why do you want to, how can you benefit from doing analysis of crimes? And so I'm taking the point of view that you're a defender, you're in a small, medium, or large size enterprise. How do you build out an effective defense in today's very complex security environment? So it seems to me what I'm really recommending in this presentation is more analysis of actual events and cybercrime. And the objective is to really improve our collective and individual defenses. So I created this slide maybe a year ago. Security is still a huge problem. This actually goes back to Cybersecurity Awareness Month from last year. So I had some information on cybercrime losses. 2018, McAfee says 600 billion. So I did update it today. So now McAfee is estimating 1 trillion worldwide losses. And then COVID fraud losses, we've all heard about those. Last year, I think the FTC estimated 152 million. Now I just checked today, it's 380 million. So we all know about the sort of global and nature of the cybercrime problem. And here's another graph you may not have seen. So I'm a member of a group called SIM, the Society for Information Management. It's a US-based organization. There's about 40 chapters around the country. And the members are, it's not a security organization. I joined like 25 years ago because I wanted to understand what are chief information security officers and directors of security, what are they, I mean, directors of IT, what are they thinking about technology and security in particular? So this is an interesting graph or table here. This shows as of their survey, which kind of just came out at the end of beginning of 2021, the top management issues in organizations as of last year, and actually the last 10 years. So it's kind of interesting to see. So in 2010, cybersecurity was only the number 9 most top, of the top 10. It was at the bottom, right? Does everybody, you guys may not, I've been around long enough to remember in 2010, if you were a security professional, you had to say, well, I know security is important for the organization, but I also know there's 8 or 9 other things that are more important. That was kind of the mindset you had to have. You couldn't say it was top of mind. And now look what's happened, 2019, 2020. For the last 4 years, security is top of mind in IT executives. Remember, these are chief information officers, not chief information security officers. So we have to take advantage of this. And this is another graph. I put this in, it has nothing to do with the talk, but I've been tracking the number of cloud jobs on Indeed.com since 2012. I started looking at that. There were 25,000 jobs. And back in those days, security was one of the biggest issues. People said, well, we can't put applications or data in the cloud, it's not secure. And so that's what me and other security professionals were saying right around 2012, 2013, on and on. But the business guys kept saying, we're going to go with the cloud anyway. And so you can see this gradual increase that took place. These are job openings of all kinds, not just security professionals. So you can see this kept increasing. And then I thought it was going to level off, but it didn't. It kept increasing. And then you can see until we hit the pandemic, cloud job openings decreased. And I wasn't sure what was going to happen. Is it going to stay low? And now look what's happened. I just checked this a few days ago. It's just skyrocketing. So this is cloud security jobs, business jobs, developer jobs. I tell everybody, forget plastics, go into the cloud. So anyway, that's nothing to do with the talk. Back to the talk. So cybercrime, Gartner said, I read a Gartner report like 8 years ago, they said, cybersecurity is an annuity, they called it. And one of the reports said it's an annuity for the next 25 years, right? So we're all in a good field. And just look at these numbers. So there's 7.5 billion cell phone. There are more cell phone subscriptions out there than people. Of those, about 3.9 billion have internet access. And it's just a basic economic inequality that's going to lead people in some of these other undeveloped countries to really go into the cybercrime as a business. So Qatar has a annual per capita income of almost 140,000, Central African Republic, $700. And then the other thing that's really going on is population changes. Sub-Saharan Africa is going to be 2x China by the end of this century. So unfortunately, cybersecurity is going to be an annuity for everybody in the field. So how do we prevent cybercrime? So there's a lot of different statistics out there, and depending on which vendor you're talking with, I'm speaking a little bit tongue in cheek about vendors. Okay, I love working with vendors, but if they have an antivirus product, they'll say viruses are the cause of breaches, or somebody else with a endpoint detection response service will say that's the problem. So there's a lot of statistics and stuff that are hard to rely on. So I decided I want to get involved in investigating actual cybercrime breaches. What happened in these breaches? And the key thing I'm trying to figure out is what's the root cause of the breach. And I'm finding that you've got people, human factors, and technology factors. So you've got more than one root cause. And I don't know, I'm an electrical engineer. I don't know about you guys. I think I like to see things black and white. So I like to see there's one cause. But it doesn't really work out that way, right? There's multiple causes that we have to kind of deal with at the same time. So the objective of my research into cybercrime is to come up with better defenses. So to start with, we got to look at who's committing their, what are the nature of the crimes? Because a lot of times if we're in technology, we're focused on technical solutions to what we think are technical problems, or MITRE attack framework, tools, techniques, and procedures. We're looking at how do we combat those. But I think we need to start looking at a little higher level. What are the actual nature of the crimes that are going on here? So the first one, the number one, according to last year's FBI crime report or summary report, is this business email compromise. And so that's that would be in billions. And then the second one, this is in terms of money lost, not in terms of number of incidents. Confidence, romance schemes costing 600 million, investment frauds like Ponzi schemes, identity theft, and on down the list, real estate. The interesting thing was that ransomware is only 29 million, but they have two asterisks here, and they say not all ransomware incidents are reported. So this is kind of where I'm starting in terms of what should we be protecting ourselves against? Should we, and it looks like email compromise is the number one, at least on this list. And another thing, the reason why I started looking into this crime root cause analysis, I have a lot of gray hairs. I've been around for a while. I've only worked in security full time for about the last 20 years. I know people up at Purdue have worked on it a lot longer, but I kind of get annoyed that we sort of keep repeating ourselves in this industry. And I have this picture of this hamster. I don't know if when I was a kid, hamsters were like the number one pet you could have. I don't see too much about hamsters anymore. But in security, we definitely keep doing the same things that we're doing before. So people are saying in the headlines about solar winds, oh my God, somebody's using code signing, somebody's injecting malware into the software development lifecycle. Oh, we've never seen that. Whereas if you go back to 2000, I just did a little research, Flame, this breach back in 2012, used code signing to disrupt Microsoft Windows. And then people are talking about, oh my God, SolarWinds, it's a third-party breach. We've never heard of a third-party breach. What about Target back in 2013, where the HVAC company was the path by which hackers got into Target? So somehow we need to do more work, I think, on the root cause analysis and just keeping track of things that we already know. And another one here are these SIM tools. So I managed security for a big car company for a while and set up one of the first SIM tools. And I remember they started to get more publicity and traction around 2005. And I recall very clearly that they were going to solve all our problems by collecting all the data and allowing us to do correlation and log analysis and on and on and on. Now I see this new product, XDR, Extended Detection and Response. They're saying the same thing. We're doing exactly the same thing. One thing I do not want to be, I would not want to be a product manager trying to sell XDR solutions, given that my company might have already sold 25 different security products. So anyway, I'm speaking a little tongue in cheek, but we keep going around in circles. And since this is a talk on security, I have to quote Sun Tzu. So he says, and people always say this, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles, right? If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. So I think most people spend a lot of time looking at the enemy, right? Just think of the MITRE attack framework and all the tools, techniques, and procedures that are in there. But he also said you have to know yourself. So I think an effective security defense really requires that we look in our own organizations and figure out what led to the breach. So that's kind of what I'm advocating in this presentation. And so I have, as I said, I spent 3 years building a security program for a global car company, and it's really hard. Why is it hard? It's gotten harder. So you start with a compliance framework, which is kind of a static, there's HIPAA, there's PCI, there's the NIST cybersecurity framework. There are many compliance frameworks. They tend to be somewhat static. Here's a checklist, or here's some objectives that you should have. And then you try to build that out with the security technology that's out there. And this is a list. I think anybody who's studying security at the graduate or undergraduate level should be familiar with this list of security companies. They're put in categories here in this book called the Security Yearbook. There's different people have analyzed the industry in different ways, but there are 2,336 vendors. So the question for the security manager is, how do you spend the next dollar? Which one of these vendors do you spend money on? How do you implement the compliance framework? These compliance frameworks are standardized by NIST and many other groups. How do you actually put it into practice? Because you can't do it yourself. You've got to use some of these tools or vendors here. So that's the challenge. So I think building an enterprise security program is really hard. And so I'm advocating doing more root cause analysis. This isn't like a new invention, all best practices around security. At least have a couple of sentences. I just looked at the NIST cybersecurity framework, and there are a couple of sentences in there about after you recover from an incident, you need to do a root cause analysis and prevent it from happening. But I think we don't do enough about that. So if we did more root cause analysis, it's going to improve our own processes internally. And then potentially we could figure out better ways to share information between organizations after breaches. How many organizations come out in any way, shape, or form to talk about what caused the breach in their organization? It's all just kind of hush hush. And I think one of the things that I think is about the security industry, there's these frameworks like the cybersecurity framework or the CMMC, the newer CMMC framework. They talk about maturity levels, and this is also an idea that's been in the security industry for years, but now it's becoming more part of the standards that are out there. So part of my message is let's focus more on internal variables in our organizations, not just the attackers. And we need to translate security events into business terms better than I think we have been. And that's how I'm teaching this program or running this program in cyber defense. So I got interested in this, and it's really hard to find out what happened in a security breach, right? We just had SolarWinds, we had the Microsoft Exchange breach. Why did Microsoft delay patching the Exchange server? They're not talking about it. Nobody knows what's happened. So it's very hard to find breach information. And there was an act, I don't know if people remember, the CISA Act of 2015 was an information sharing act. It said companies should share more information with the federal government. They were going to, the Department of Homeland Security, they were going to turn around, reformat, process the information, scrub it, and then share it to the FBI back out to these organizations. And I remember I wrote an article for an ABA, American Bar Association journal. I collaborated with an attorney. We both wrote it, and we were both a little bit skeptical, is this thing going to work? And there was a lot of ballyhoo about it. It's really going to work. And I just saw a couple days ago a report from the Inspector General looking at how much information has been shared. And so far, I think only 9 companies have shared any information with the Department of Homeland Security. And so, because, with SolarWinds and, the Biden administration is saying we need more information sharing. And I'm wondering what's going on here. We already had a law about that, but I think companies just chose not to share information with the federal government. So there are other areas. I also saw a reference to this PSQIA, Patient Safety and Quality Improvement Act legislation from 2005. So I don't know all the details of this, but healthcare organizations are incented to share safety and quality information with other organizations. So I think it draws kind of a moat. If you have, let's say, if some patient dies for XYZ procedure or some piece of equipment doesn't work, you don't have to publicize it exactly what happened, but there is a sharing algorithm whereby hospitals and other healthcare organizations can share this kind of information with each other. So that might be something that we could do in security. So the question is, how do you figure out what happened in a breach? So books, articles, and I've started doing a fair amount of legal research using this website, Pacer Pro. Pacer Pro is a website. You set up an account, you can go in there and you can look at the trial record for different cases. So if somebody's indicted for a security breach or a Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, the whole court transcript will be there. And at least at the beginning in the indictment, you can see what was done. And so my idea is that in a courtroom, people usually are sort of required to tell the truth or whatever, be honest. So it's one way to figure out exactly what's going on in these different breaches. The only challenge with this is if it's a corporation, let's say Microsoft gets hacked by somebody and that somebody is indicted for federal crime or state crime, then oftentimes the victim is going to demand that the transcript of that all be sealed, so you can't really see it because they don't want anybody to know anything about what happened. So it's the constant, breach information is clouded and obscurity. But anyway, that's one other source that I've been using. So in organizations, so this is the usual approach to security events. I'm not talking about crimes, but any kind of an event here. The problems are identified. This is what goes on in security companies. I mean, in many enterprises, there's immediate firefighting, containment, and then problems reoccur. So I think we need to put more emphasis on the part that comes after the containment, this root cause analysis, validated solutions, and then solutions applied across the organization. So I see security as a continuous improvement process that we need to feed and take care of. And so to do that, there are other tools and techniques from other fields, like industrial engineering does this often, looking at manufacturing processes, what went wrong with the process. And there's this interesting diagram, it's sometimes called a cause and effect diagram or a Ishikawa diagram, Ishikawa fishbone chart. So all it is a brainstorming tool that if you have an incident, or it could be just in a security event, the system goes down, or some machines are, when I was at the auto company, I came in one morning and I found that 200 of my users were deleted from Active Directory. And so that's a security event that I had to deal with at the time. So when you want to figure out what happened, this is a tool for kind of brainstorming and getting a group of people together around a table and say, what are the things that went wrong? And in the cause and effect diagram, the goal is to organize the causes into certain categories so that if you have another event, you can use similar categories and start figuring out, gee, do we have a people training problem? Do I have a process problem? Do we have, what do we have? So I put 4 buckets here just based on my own experience in security defense. You've got people Obviously, in the loop, you've got security processes, hopefully. You may be outsourcing to MSSP vendors or partners. You may have technology issues. So these are 4 buckets. By the way, I didn't put hackers in here because that's not, it's not under our control. So these are the internal things that you could consider controlling, or hopefully could control in your organization. And then there are some other things that are important here. A problem may have more than one root cause. So as I said, as an engineer, we like things black and white. We want to find what's the one root cause, we'll go look for that. And whereas that may not be the answer. There may be more than one root cause contributing to the problem. And that's where this kind of diagram helps. You can see, you can document the different things that take place. And again, if you don't address the root cause, you can expect, the problem to occur again. So I want to do an example. So in the ideal world, I'd have a lot of these analyses done. I just did one. Here's a question. Let's see if I can answer it. Somewhere, someone's looking for database of breaches to get social engineering cases. Is there a way, Professor Selleck, I can get back to people if I don't have an answer right off the top of my head for this? Or
you can just answer the question.
okay, I'll type. I basically will say, send me an email with this question, because I don't have an immediate answer. This person's looking for a database of breaches that were caused by social engineering. I wish I had that, so I don't have that at this point, but because the breach information scattered all over the place, and it would be good to have it better organized. That's a good topic for a thesis. But so this is one, I'm gonna here's the root cause analysis I was doing. And here's an example. Let's go back to the Equifax breach in 2017. And I'm using this one. I didn't go through the court case. There's a book by Graham Payne about this breach. And he is and was a very respected cybersecurity risk analyst and manager, basically, in Atlanta. And at the time of this breach, he was promoted to a chief information officer of the division of Equifax. And so he told the whole story of exactly what happened. And so what did happen is 145 million records were breached in 2017. Interesting, the company started in Maryland two brothers started as a credit reporting service. And then I don't know if anybody, two, I guess, Chinese PLA members were charged with the crime about a year ago. I don't know if anybody, that's about it, right? That's as far as that's going to go. And so the actual attack path was through a system, something called the Dispute Resolution System, ACES, that Equifax had. So if you wanted to complain about your low credit score, you'd log into this system and take some action. So that was what happened. So DHS in March published a bulletin about a critical vulnerability in that particular software. March 9th, the security. So here's where the ball got dropped. So the security team didn't really, they notified the CIO, the guy who wrote that book, that the system needs patching, but the CIO didn't see the email. And then a couple months later, as you can see, the breach was made public on September 19th. So what happened here, So this is my Ishikawa fishbone diagram of that. So here was this enormous breach, 147 million records. So what happened? So can you blame the security people sent the information to the CIO, who was responsible for patching systems, like one day after they heard about it. So you'd say, wow, they did really great. But look at this process, the breach remediation or vulnerability management process relied on just random work emails going from one department to the next, right? So this is a horrible process. And then on the people side, I don't even know if you can blame the CIO. So he got 200 emails per day, he said in the book, and in the court testimony when this thing went into Senate hearings rather. So he just missed that particular email that said, patch the Apache servers. And then another aspect of this was that there were unpatched servers that remained unpatched because Equifax didn't even know they existed. These were all part of that ASIS system that I was talking about. So what kind of a, there are huge companies and organizations devoted to IT asset management. So how come they couldn't identify unpatched, there's technology to solve this problem. So I see at least three causes, two huge causes here, right? That the process of notifying the IT managers about a critical vulnerability was completely non-functional. And the second thing that wasn't functional was their IT asset management process. And both of these, there are workflow tools out there and there are IT asset management tools. So that's kind of how I see this. I don't know if Equifax did this kind of process or what, but this is sort of what's needed to make sure that issues like this don't reoccur. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about 5 other cybercrime stories. I haven't done the full Ishikawa diagram analysis for them, but I've kind of started to collect information on what happened here. And they vary quite a bit here. So I did do one on this romance scam thing here, and that's this one. So I use this sometimes to talk about why you should protect your privacy. And it's not only business issues, right? Everybody knows the more information you put out there, the more likely you're going to get a really good phishing email, right? So how many people are getting emails that are directly related to their work? So I had a Microsoft Azure subscription that I let expire. And then like 3 days later, I get a phishing email saying, oh, we're so sorry you didn't renew your Azure subscription. Just click here to put in your credit card and start it up again. So it was a total fake. But anyhow, this is a case that took place in Maryland. And these two people got romantically involved. They broke up in May 2016. And the guy, AK, he's the guy, JK is the woman. So AK took over these 6 accounts. So he must have known the password or guessed, he guessed the password from his former romantic partner, took over all these accounts. Then he sent spoofed threatening messages from her to himself. Okay, so get that. He faked threatening messages from her to himself. Then he had those messages on his iPhone or whatever kind of phone he had, and he took that phone to the police and then had her arrested and jailed 6 times. And so you just have to kind of register what's going on here. He's faking messages from this woman to himself and then going to the police and getting her arrested. And so just some general recommendations. You guys are already doing this. Monitoring privacy on social media platforms. Use password managers, use multi-factor, protect all these accounts. One other thing I'm trying is this jumbo privacy. It speeds up the management of your social media accounts. You are turning over some of your information to them, but so far it's proved to be pretty effective. And then of course, multi-factor authentication. I also note a lot of security professionals say, well, we have to use one-time passwords. We can't use SMS, but for the average user, probably SMS is going to be better than one-factor or no two-factor authentication. So here's another case that's more business focused. It's a trade secret theft case. So I'm going through this to try to figure out what caused this and what can we do to figure it out to prevent it from happening in this organization or others. So this was a hospital in Columbus, Ohio, Nationwide Children's Hospital. And it was a trade secret theft. A lot of these trade secret theft cases involve internal and external people. So insiders and outsiders. And this occurred right around 2017. This was also after the US-China agreement not to conduct or knowingly support cyber-enabled theft of intellectual property. I guess you guys probably, you know, the Obama administration promoted that. And I think there was a period of time where it appeared that there would be less theft of Chinese, Chinese, you know, theft of intellectual property. So these two people, YZ and LZ, I don't put names in here because if this is in the public domain, I don't want to get sued by anybody. So I just put YZ and LZ. They worked at Nationwide Children's Hospital doing something called exosome research. I don't know exactly what an exosome is, but it's a sophisticated cellular communication mechanism as far as I understand. And during this period of time in 2015, they started a Chinese company doing the same thing that they were doing in China. And then a year later in 2016, they started a US company doing the same kind of thing while they're working at Nationwide Children's Hospital. Nationwide Children's doesn't sound like a super research hospital, but apparently it has very sophisticated research in this particular area. And they also were working for the Chinese State Administration of Foreign Expert Affairs. And they used their email to send trade secrets to Chinese and personal email accounts. Okay, so what is going on here? So this attack went on for years. It's not like a typical, or maybe a, you know, not typical, there are no typical breaches, right? But these trade secret thefts can go on for years, whereas a typical breach seems to be detected a little bit more quickly in months. So, but these people were exfiltrating in this information for years. So what was missing on the technology side? Data loss prevention. Where was the data loss prevention that would stop these people from, you know, sending emails with research information? That's one thing. And then the second thing is, where was the middle management training on how to manage risk, supervision of employees? Where were the privileged access management systems? And where was the understanding of DLP to make sure that people can get access to information that they should get and not more information? So I think to me, this is kind of a shocking kind of incident that the people running this hospital weren't educated enough about risk and weren't educated enough about some of the threats that could go wrong. That's how I read this. We need, one of my mantras is more security technical education for non-security professionals. That's kind of what my root cause analysis of this is. People need to know how easy it is to exfiltrate information from a research environment out into you know, potentially people that shouldn't have the information. Now this next one, this is my favorite case to talk about. This, you remember back from the FBI report, this is the top crime that they're reporting in their system, business email compromise. This thing is, you would not believe this would happen. So this was a case like 5 or 6 years ago where money, I think it was 15 million bucks or 15 to 17 million dollars was transferred from this company, Scholl, to a Chinese Bank of China. And it was done through an orchestrated group of attackers. They haven't been found, the money hasn't been recovered. And it's almost like a tragedy that took place here. There were the hackers, a group of hackers. There was the CEO of the company, Chuck LC. There was an outside attorney, I forgot his name, and there was the company controller, Kevin McMurtry. Kevin was the target of this attack. And you think it couldn't happen here, but it's happening all the time, right? You saw the numbers, it was in the billions, right, for business email compromise. So this was only 15 million. So what happened here was the hacker initially sent an email to the CEO. No, I'm sorry, it was from the CEO, it was spoofed. And it so somebody found the email contact information and they figured out who's the controller of this company, Kevin McMurtry. They sent him an email and they spoofed the sender. This doesn't look like the CEO's email address, but they spoofed it and they said, we've got this hot project FT809. This is an email from FT809, strictly confidential information, takes priority. So they really tried to catch the fish, Kevin McMurtry. And I guess you can see things like bad English here that you need to look out for. And the next email, also from that same fake email address to Kevin McMurtry, it says, we've been working on acquiring a Chinese company. Please reach out to attorney Rodney Lawrence, that was the KPMG guy, for information on where the funds need to be deposited. And then a fake email address was provided for that, KPMG-office. That's not the email address of KPMG, which would be kpmg.com, I think. Okay, so another fake email. And then the third one, also from, oh no, this was from Rodney Lawrence, right? The attorney. And so actually it was a spoofed email from Rodney Lawrence, the spoofed KPMG attorney, went to the controller, please wire this amount to Shanghai. It's actually Shanghai Bank, not Bank of China, amount 780,000. And it started out really small. It was only $780,000 they were asking for. The next one, the same kind of thing. Actually, this was from the CEO. So it said, well, actually, we need more money. We need 7 million. Please proceed ASAP with this wire. So it was 780,000. Then it went to 7 million. And then following this, there was another email that said we need another 7 million. So it ended up as $15 million. And this, nobody could believe this, but this actually happened. And all these guys are consultants now, except the attorney. He's still working at KPMG. So what can we learn from this? So I think one thing you have to realize, you can't, we have things like Microsoft Defender. We have advanced, quote, advanced threat protection, right? If you guys use Outlook, I have that. So you think, wow, you think this is, all the problems are, you can't spoof email, you can get past that. Hackers, we've raised the bar on email security for sure, right? So you filter out URL domains and stuff like that still, but hackers also have raised their game up, right? And they're kind of as good as the defense technology. So I think the message for users is you still have to check your email addresses and content. I tend to think, hey, how come I'm getting this phishing email? My university has advanced threat protection. But so you still can't rely on the technology because the bad guys keep getting better. And there's another weird thing with this company, Scholl. They still are publicizing, should they be publicizing their back office staff, like their controller? They have this woman here, she's on their website, she's head of corporate payables. I just say, why is she on the website? It's just like putting a target in a bullseye. So yeah, so Office 365 has ATP, but it doesn't stop account takeovers. So you have to train your users on what can the technology do and what it can't do. So here's another one, PII, personally identifiable information breach. This also is somewhat similar in some ways to the Equifax breach. This was a company, First American Title, a title insurance company, and it was started in 1889. And what it does, if you buy a house or buy a property, they'll do a title search for you. And all this stuff is done online now. Right now, it's, you used to be in the real estate attorney's office. Now you're not even there, right? It's all remote. So they had built a system called FAST where they store all these titles. And it turned out that you would give a user access to look up their title or access their title for the property they were buying, but it turned out they could see all other 850 million documents that were in the entire title database. And so actually, this is a case, they have a case against them from the New York State Department of Financial Services. It's actually, I haven't updated it to check what happened, but they're going to get some kind of penalties for doing this. And so what happened here? So when this application FAST was created, and it had a vulnerability in 2014. And it was discovered not that fast, right? You can't give the security team too good of a mark here. It took them 4 years to find this vulnerability, but still, then they sent the report to the application team, and nobody did anything. And one of the reasons was when the security team filled out the assessment report, they misclassified the risk as low, and that could be, they filled out a web form, somebody hit low. They didn't have enough internal checking of what the heck they're doing. They didn't fix it within the required 90 days. And so it took maybe somebody like Krebs or somebody to publicize this thing. I think it was Krebs in May 2019. So I've got to go back and see what happened. But you can see a lot of broken processes here, right? People and process. So fix your remediation process first, not your vulnerability. Educate boards and senior management, and keep track of risks, not just vulnerabilities. So the last one is ransomware. This is a little bit out of date. One of the points about ransomware is it's really hard to stop this because the people carrying it out are overseas. And at least last year when I created this slide, I didn't see that anybody had been arrested for carrying out ransomware attacks. These two guys that attacked Atlanta were indicted, but they're Iranian citizens, and so I don't think anything else has happened with that. So ransomware is really tough to take. The exact ways that they're breaking in are not that clear in each case. So that's one of the another one of these breach black holes of information. I'm going to skip that one. I might skip this one. So there are various trends going on with COVID. I see I'm almost running out of time here, but so what's the future of cybersecurity? So one of the messages here, we need to focus on the people and process part of cyber defense, not just technology. I realize you guys, at Purdue look at all aspects of cybersecurity, but here's another one. So I'm wondering, as we build these very high barriers around all our technology, is this the future of cybersecurity? I don't know. I saw that this guy, Khrushchev, he entered the US, a Russian citizen entered the US in order to breach Tesla. And he recruited somebody only known as CHS-1, confidential human source number 1, inside the company in Tesla's Gigafactory in Reno. And he offered him $1 million for planting malware in the Tesla network. But he was I can imagine being this Tesla employee. So he, I guess, went to the FBI. Anyway, he didn't carry this out. And so the guy was arrested. And I think he's pled guilty too. So I'm just wondering, so I think security is going to become more around the human side and the process side. And we need to be aware of that. I think 20 years ago, it was all, let's patch Windows. Now, I think we have to make sure our processes work and that our human operators are better trained. So that's sort of the conclusion, is to use root cause analysis, provide a brainstorming format within organizations to improve the internal security systems. Always invite team members from outside the security silo when you're doing the brainstorming or going through that Ishikawa diagram that I showed. And then maybe we can develop some kind of root cause analysis standards for information sharing amongst organizations. So I'm in the multi-state ISAC, all I get are vulnerabilities. I never see anything about, what caused this breach or that breach and how can I improve my own defense. So I think we need to put more weight on the people and process aspect of security defense, not just technology. And if we can get better at analyzing crime scenes or sharing information on what caused breaches, we're going to really go a long way to improve our defenses. I have a few references in the last minutes of books that I use. This thing by John Doerr is using key performance indicators and tracking process improvement. And then if you're in an organization and interested in the people side of how do you get your security program to be more effective, this is a really good book. He's got like a 10-step program on improving security. And then I think many CISOs have talked about, yes, we have controls. The question is, how well do the controls work? That's execution. So that's this book by Bossity and Sharon. And a book that I kind of was inspired a little bit by, this Josephine Wolf. She also looks at a bunch of security breaches and then comes back and says, what was the root cause of this? How do we fix it? She's looking more broadly at legal and economic issues, but it's the same kind of idea. It's a good read if you have time. So I think I have, is there any questions? I have 10 more minutes for questions. And I have in the chat, social engineering, okay. Any questions or comments? Anybody have any thoughts about how to continue this work? So if I'm still on, send me an email or connect with me on LinkedIn if you have any interest in cybercrime analysis or building better defenses.
Right. So I have one general question
Yeah.
here. So you are you started the cybersecurity master's degree program, right?
Yeah.
Do you integrate like these type of courses to the program there?
I don't have a course specifically on this. We try to use examples, during the courses as opposed to one just on this. So we have a course on threats. Our program is 31 credit hour courses actually. So we try to include as many real world breach examples, but I don't have a specific course on this yet.
Okay. I thought maybe there might be a general course basically examining like different policies, maybe, right, on the companies. SPAF has a one similar course at Purdue here, like the ethics, policy ethics, or security policies in different organizations.
Yeah, or just one course on cybercrime might be interesting, right? Because there's so many. I'd have to get some FBI people to help me out, or some. That could be interesting, right? Have a lot of guest speakers from law enforcement.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
All right, I think we have one question from Professor Chris Clifton here.
Yeah.
In the Q&A.
Yeah, so it says, do I see completely new things likely to happen, things we aren't track? I'm most worried about, I didn't even mention this really, but disinformation or misinformation and how it's just affecting. So it's really, I see it as kind of the integrity part of security. You got confidentiality, availability, integrity. So that's the thing that causes me to lose sleep. It's not, you see things like synthesized digital images and voices, and so that's something that we've got spoofed. we've got account takeover, but we could migrate into human takeover, actually, taking over human voice prints and faces and things like that. That's an area that I think could be, because the human's always the weakest link in security, right? So it's the one that can be attacked the most effectively and will continue to be. So that, I don't know, that's kind of what worries me, disinformation and spoofing humans more effectively than we're doing right now. Artificial intelligence and, leveraging artificial intelligence for propagating malware and fraud.
All right. Are there any questions? Let me see the chat and the Q&A again. All right. I think we are good. Thank you so much again for joining us today, and we hope to see you in person, hopefully next year.
Definitely, yeah. I'll go to you have your annual seminar up there, right? So I'd like to
Yes.
go to that. I've been there a couple of times. Yep.
Yeah, that would be nice. Again, thank you so much, Fred.
All right. Okay. Thank you. It was fun.